There is a group of people who have lived to be 100 years old and are still in remarkably good health. They've never set foot in a gym, never consumed protein powder, and never taken nutritional supplements. Yet they've lived to be 100. This isn't a myth, nor is it due to genetic advantages. Scientists spent a full 20 years studying this group, and the answers they found will make you rethink the very meaning of health. Today, we'll break down the science of longevity behind the world's 5 blue zones, 5 habits that account for 80% of the difference in lifespan, and you can start making these changes today. First, let's talk about what the blue zones actually are. The term was first coined by Italian demographer Michel Poulain. While studying longevity data from Sardinia, he used a blue marker to circle an area on a map where centenarians were unusually concentrated, and that's how the name blue zones came about. Later, American author and researcher Dan Buettner traveled the world with a team of scientists and identified 5 blue zones that had been rigorously verified through demographic studies. Okinawa, the place with the highest proportion of women aged 100 or older in the world. Sardinia, the place with the highest proportion of men aged 100 or older in the world. Peninsula of Nicoya, extremely low mortality rates among middle-aged adults. Ikaria, a dementia incidence rate that is only 1/4 that of the United States. Loma Linda, Adventist members here live 7 to 10 years longer on average than surrounding Americans. In June 2025, a systematic review published in Aging and Disease analyzed 65 studies on blue zones, covering 10 candidate blue zones worldwide. Data from Okinawa, Sardinia, and Nicoya showed that longevity in these regions was significantly higher than their respective national averages. So what exactly is the secret to their longevity? The scientists' findings were surprising. Genetics account for only about 20% of the difference in lifespan. The Danish twin study confirmed this as early as the 1990s. The remaining 80%, it's lifestyle, factors that can be changed. Next, we'll break down these 5 habits one by one. It's not about exercise, it's about life itself being exercise. If you were to ask the centenarians in Okinawa or Sardinia, how long do you exercise each day? They'd likely look at you in confusion and reply, exercise? I just go out to the garden to grow vegetables. This is one of the most counterintuitive findings from the blue zones. These long-lived people don't exercise at all, they're simply living their lives. The elderly in Sardinia walk into the mountains every day to tend their sheep. The elders in Okinawa squat on the ground to plant sweet potatoes, stand up, and squat down again. On Ikaria, there aren't even proper roads. If you want to visit a neighbor, you have to climb a hill. From a research perspective, this low to moderate intensity physical activity naturally embedded in daily life, keeps their muscles and cardiovascular systems continuously active, rather than the 3 gym sessions a week, followed by sedentary time the rest of the time approach. The latter actually doesn't significantly improve the overall health of many modern people. What you can do: skip the elevator and take the stairs. Park your car a little farther away and walk an extra 10 minutes. If possible, grow a potted plant or a small vegetable garden. It will remind you to tend to it every day. Don't aim for 10,000 steps a day, instead, make exercise a part of your daily life. If you compare the diets of the 5 blue zones, you'll notice a striking similarity: legumes. A review published in Current Research in Nutrition and Food Science in 2025 noted that the diets of blue zone residents are highly consistent. More than 95% of their intake comes from plant-based foods, with legumes serving as the primary source of protein. They consume about half a cup of legumes daily, the single food currently known to be most strongly associated with longevity. Meat is consumed about 5 times a month, with each serving ranging from 85 to 110 grams. Sardinians follow the Mediterranean diet: olive oil, whole grains, fermented cheese, and small amounts of red wine. The traditional diet of the Okinawans centers on sweet potatoes, paired with tofu and various dark-colored vegetables, extremely low in calories yet nutrient-dense. Most Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda are vegetarians, and their incidence of cardiovascular disease is far lower than that of the surrounding population. Behind the diets of these different regions lie the same biological mechanisms. High fiber. Residents of blue zones consume 40 to 60 grams of dietary fiber daily, compared to an average of only 15 grams for Westerners. High fiber nourishes gut probiotics and reduces systemic inflammation. Polyphenol. Olives, berries, nuts, and legumes are rich in polyphenol, which help combat oxidation and regulate cellular signaling pathways. Moderate calorie intake. Stop eating when you're about 80% full. Modern research shows that this natural calorie restriction can lower inflammatory markers, improve metabolic flexibility, and even influence the rate of epigenetic aging. What you can do: add beans to your daily diet. Chickpeas, black beans, or lentils are all good options. Treat meat as a side dish rather than the main course. Eat more slowly. It takes about 20 minutes for your brain to register fullness. Don't strive for a perfect vegan diet. Reducing ultra-processed foods is more important than anything else. This concept may be more important than your genes. In Okinawa, if you ask an 85-year-old why they get up every day, their answer is almost never, "For my health." They'll say, "For my granddaughter, for my vegetable garden, for my pottery club, for my friends." A review published in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine cited a Japanese cohort study by Son et al. During the follow-up period, participants who reported having no life purpose had a significantly higher risk of death, particularly from cardiovascular disease, along with higher C-reactive protein levels and lower high-density lipoprotein levels. In other words, without a life purpose, your body's inflammation levels are higher. Another study from Loma Linda found that people with clear life goals have a life expectancy about 7 years longer than their peers. However, most of these studies are observational, indicating correlation rather than causation. People with a sense of purpose may simply be healthier to begin with, making it easier for them to maintain good habits. What you can do: find at least one thing that makes you look forward to tomorrow. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It could be watering a plant every day or spending time with family. Volunteering, learning new skills, and helping your community have all been repeatedly found to be positively associated with longevity. Residents of the blue zones aren't stress-free, rather, they know how to relieve stress. Chronic stress is one of the most insidious killers of modern life. When you're under prolonged stress, cortisol levels remain elevated, systemic inflammation builds up, the immune system is compromised, and cardiovascular risks increase. Of course, people in the blue zones experience stress as well. Sardinia was once one of Italy's poorest regions, and Okinawa endured some of the fiercest battles of World War II. But they have a built-in stress relief mechanism. Okinawans pay respects to their ancestors every morning, slowing down the pace of life. Sardinians stop by a neighbor's house in the afternoon for a small glass of local wine, a social ritual and a time to unwind. Ikarians take naps during the day. Studies have found that regular napping is associated with a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. Followers in Loma Linda stop working and put away their cell phones every Sunday, completely shutting down from sunset to sunset. The people of Nicoya spend time with their families every day and never eat alone. These rituals may seem different, but the physiological logic behind them is the same, regularly activating the parasympathetic nervous system, allowing cortisol levels to return to normal, and enabling the body to recover from chronic stress. What you can do: find 5 to 15 minutes each day to do something just for yourself. Meditate, take a walk, read, or simply let your mind wander. You don't need complex mindfulness courses. Consistency, simplicity, and daily practice are more important than occasional, carefully planned sessions. Set aside a disconnect time each week, even if it's just 2 hours on Sunday afternoon without looking at your phone. The health risks of loneliness are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. This is one of the most startling discoveries scientists have made in recent years. Social isolation is associated with a roughly 50% increased risk of premature death, an effect equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The social structure of the blue zones naturally serves as a safety net against loneliness. In Okinawa, children are grouped into clusters of about 5 from childhood onward. These bonds last a lifetime, with members supporting one another during financial hardship and offering companionship in times of grief. In Sardinian culture, it is extremely common for grandparents and grandchildren to live together. Research has found that living with grandparents brings significant benefits to the physical and mental health of both parties. The religious community in Loma Linda provides regular weekly gatherings, shared life goals, and a close-knit support network. The key is that the core of these social connections isn't the number of friends you have, but rather deep, stable, and meaningful relationships. What you can do: meet in person regularly with the people you truly care about, not just through messages, but face-to-face. Join a group that shares your values, such as a sports club, volunteer organization, or religious community. If you have parents or grandparents, visit them regularly. This provides mutual support for both them and you. However, Saul Newman, a demographer at the Australian National University, points out that in regions with historically inadequate birth registration systems, the number of supercentenarians may be overstated. Data from the United States shows that after the establishment of birth certificate systems, the number of supercentenarians declined by 69% to 82%. In other words, the longevity myth of some blue zones may be statistically inflated. But this does not mean the research is without value. In 2025, the journal Geriatrics published a formal response by Ousted et al. To Newman's criticism, arguing that rigorous age verification processes have been repeatedly validated in core blue zones, particularly in Okinawa, which is supported by Japan's comprehensive household registration system. More importantly, even setting aside the blue zone data, these lifestyle habits, a high plant-based diet, regular low-intensity exercise, strong social connections, and a sense of purpose, have been individually demonstrated in dozens of independent randomized controlled trials and large-scale cohort studies to be associated with longer life expectancy and a lower risk of chronic diseases. Alright, let's summarize today's key points. 5 blue zone habits you can start today. 1. Natural movement. Make physical activity the default part of your life. Take the stairs, go for walks, do some gardening. 2. Plant-based diet. Eat half a cup of beans daily, make meat a side dish, and stop eating when you're 80% full. 3. Find your purpose in life. Discover the one thing that gets you out of bed every day. 4. Daily stress relief. Set aside 5 to 15 minutes of disconnection time just for yourself. 5. Meaningful social connections. Face-to-face, meaningful, and consistent relationships. None of these require you to spend a fortune on supplements, nor do they require you to check in at the gym every day. They simply require you to redesign the structure of your daily life. Remember, genes are just the starting point, lifestyle is what sets the direction. Okay, now I'd like to ask you a question. Let me know in the comments. Of these 5 habits, which one do you find the hardest to stick to? Is it not being able to give up meat, not finding your purpose in life, or does modern city life make it feel increasingly difficult to form deep social connections? We'll continue in the next episode. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates.